God led me here, or God didn't help me. So ultimately we put the blame on God, and God never tempts us. God never tempts us. How do we know that? Well, the Bible tells us that. James chapter 1, 13 and 15, it's going to be there on the screen, tells us this truth, that God does not tempt us. So we should not be blaming him for our temptations and for falling to them. James says this, he says, and remember, when you are being tempted, do not say God is tempting me. God is never tempted to do wrong, and he never tempts anyone else. Okay? It's not God's fault. He doesn't tempt you. Temptation comes from our own evil desires, which entice us and drag us away. These desires give birth to sinful actions, and when sin is allowed to grow, it gives birth to death. So sin comes from ourselves, our own evil desires. If we are left in and of ourselves, we fall to sin. We are evil people. We are bent towards sin. Our flesh just wants to do bad things, wants to do selfish things. We just think about ourselves. Any of you guys have trouble thinking about yourself? Okay? All of us, most of us, think about ourselves all the time. If we're comfortable, I'm hungry, this person needs to stop talking, he's talking too loud, he's talking too long, I wish I was playing a video game, the list could go on and on, I wish I had $1 million, whatever. We're always thinking about ourselves. And that typically gets us in trouble because our flesh, our bodies, our human nature, we want to sin. We have evil desires, they come from within. And that is where we get this battle. This battle starts in our minds, in our hearts. We know what we should do, but then we know what we want to do. Right? We know what we should do. We know it's right. We know what God wants. But then we're like, but I want to do this. This will make me happy. This will be fun. And you guys know it. Even if we have good intentions, we still fall. We still don't always win the battle against temptation. And that's okay because we have Jesus. That's why we needed Jesus, because we are all sinners. So first of all, we have to understand that you cannot blame God. If you want to beat temptation, don't blame God. Don't blame anyone else. Those evil desires come from yourself. Second thing I want to share here about helping temptation lose is this. Look for a way out. Look for a way out. So these 3 things I'm sharing, they're kind of like 3 steps for helping temptation lose. Okay? If you get tempted, the first thing you should do is stop. Stop. Okay? Stop. Think about it. And then look for a way out. Look for a way out. We talked about this last week. There's always a way out for you to take. There's always a way out for me to take. You can say no. You can stand up against it. Many times we make excuses though. I know this for myself. I always say, I can't do it. The temptation is too strong. I couldn't fight it. I just had to. I couldn't help myself. I couldn't stop. It was too good. Right? That's how I think about food. Oh, it's just too good. I need another burrito. Whatever. But God always provides a way out. Whenever there's a temptation, God will provide a way out so that we don't have to fall to that temptation. And this verse, we shared it last week. We're going to share it again this week. But this week, it's your memory verse. Again, there's a memory verse every week at the bottom of your outline. If you memorize that, the next week, come talk to me, share that verse with me. You'll get something free from the snack shack. Okay? So we shared this last week. This week, it's the memory verse. It's a little long, but 1 Corinthians 10:13 tells us that God will always provide a way out for our temptations. He says this. Paul says, the temptations in your life are no different than from what others experience. Okay, we all go through the same type of temptations. We all struggle. And God is faithful. He will not allow the temptation to be more than you can stand. When you are tempted, He will show you a way out so that you can endure. So that you can fight back. So that you don't have to fall to that temptation. This is actually a promise from God. Do you guys believe that God can't lie? God doesn't lie, right? Or does God lie? What do you guys think? Does God lie or does God never lies? He never lies, right? So then when he says, he will show you a way out, is that a promise from God? Is God telling you something? Yeah. So that is a promise from God. So if you fall to temptation, is that God's fault? No. Because he has promised that he will always give us a way out. He will always show us a way out. And that's the thing that happens. Sometimes we see the way out and we still say, nah, I want to do this. Right? I still want to do this. And that's the hard part, is you're battling against yourself. You're battling against your flesh, your sin. And it's so hard. He shows us the way out and we see it, but we don't take it. A lot of us, or maybe all of us, we like to sin. We like sin too much. It's a struggle. And some of us, we feel like, well, you know what? I'm a sinner anyway. And God knows I'm going to sin eventually. And, well, Jesus died for my sin, so why don't I just sin some more then, because it's already paid for. It's already, God already did, it's fine. He's going to forgive me. He still loves me no matter what. I mean, we can make all kinds of excuses for allowing us to do it, but here's the thing we have to understand. You and I have the power to say no. You and I, with God's help, we can say no. There is a way out. We need just to open up our eyes and we need to look for that way out. And when we see it, we got to take it. We got to do it. Okay, you see that way out? You got to take it. You got to do it. So, stop blaming God. Stop in whatever situation you're in. Look for a way out. And here's number 3, how to make temptation lose. Trust that God will use temptations to help you grow. So trust him. Take that way out. And then understand that through that whole situation that he just allowed you to go through, it's going to help you to grow. See, when you and I fight temptations and we have these struggles and sometimes we fall to temptation, but sometimes we actually beat them with God's help, God uses those situations to build up our character. God uses those situations to help us grow in our faith, to mature us as Christians. Here's why. Because we're going to be dealing with sin the rest of our lives. Okay? I don't know how long you're going to be alive, 60, 70, 80, 90, maybe 100 years old, whatever. You are going to be having to deal with sin the rest of your life. So guess what? God is training you. God is training you. When temptation comes, and sometimes you fall, sometimes you beat it, sometimes, back and forth, whatever. All the situations God is going to use to help you to get better and better at fighting temptation, at beating it. It's like practice. How many of you guys are involved in sports? Do you think you can be good at sports without practicing?
Oh, yeah. Practice.
You might be naturally gifted. But you need to practice. Especially with any type of team sport. If you are in a team sport, you need to understand the plays. You need to know how to work together with the other people. You need to practice. Anybody in here ever done boxing? Boxing? People? Okay, one person. I know boxing's not super popular anymore. I know. Now it's all about MMA and stuff. But you guys know what this thing is? Go ahead and put it on the screen. That is a punching bag, right? Okay, so let's just think about this. You are training to be a boxer, training to be a fighter. Is it good to practice with that punching bag? No, it's not good to practice with the punching bag? All right. So practicing, training on a punching bag is good. But here's the problem with that. It will only take you so far. So living your Christian life without temptations and without struggles is kind of like learning to fight with a punching bag. You're going to learn some stuff, but check this out. If you want to be a good fighter, you have to, what they call spar or fight in the ring against a real life person. Okay? Why do you need to fight against a real person to get better? So you know how to protect yourself. What else? So what?
So you can learn moves and fight back.
You can learn moves and fight back.
Because you're going to go up against a real person.
Because you're eventually going to go up against a real person, yeah.
It's not like when we get something that doesn't move at all.
That doesn't move at all, yeah. Yeah, punching back doesn't dodge and react back
So
to
learn
you.
the mistakes you've done.
To learn the mistakes you've done. Okay, yeah, one more. Okay, so check this out. All good reasons. Think about this. If you punch and hit a punching bag, it swings, and maybe you'll hit it really hard and you won't be paying attention, it'll hit you back. But more than likely, nothing's really going to happen to you. But when you fight against a real person, you're going to get smacked around. You're going to get hit. A big, huge thing of boxing is being able to take the blows, being able to take the hits, and training your body to withstand all that. That's kind of like what God does when He allows temptations and hard times to come in our lives. That we have to take the hits. It's a way of training ourselves. We have to go through the struggles because that's how we learn. That's how God trains us. So I know we as human beings, we don't like to go through hard times. We don't like to have to deal with temptations and trials in our lives. But God allows them to happen because those temptations, those hard things are going to help us to grow. So we're going to stay in James chapter 1, 2 through 4. James talks about this. He talks about how God uses hard times to train us. It is on page 756. It's at the end of the Bible. So if you have a Bible, go ahead and look it up. Again, we want you to look up these verses because it helps you to get used to where the books or the Bible are at. And so you can find them quicker and faster. And just get to know your Bible a little bit better. So James chapter 1, it's a very familiar passage. Chapter 1, verses 2 through 4. Listen to what he says. He says, "Dear brothers and sisters," he's talking to Christians here. He says, "When trouble comes your way," and troubles you can replace with temptation. "When trouble comes your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. For you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. So let it grow, for when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing." So when we go through hard times, it's God training us. God's helping us to get stronger, to get better, to understand Him a little bit more. God uses all the situations in our lives to train us, to build us up, to give us endurance. You guys know what endurance is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah? It's the ability to keep going when you're tired, when you're beat up, when you want to quit. God uses all this to help us to grow in our relationship with Him, to become more and more like Him. This is all part of the discipleship process. This is all the part of becoming more and more like Jesus. This is all part of God growing our character. I know a lot of you guys know this, but it's like when you become a Christian, you guys ever heard, like, when you become a Christian, you're born again? You guys ever heard that?
Yes.
When people are born, are they born adults?
No.
No, they're born what? Babies. Babies, right? So as a baby, you don't really know a lot. You really can't do anything for yourself. And so God needs to teach us and grow us and show us things. And we grow up and we mature and we get to do more and more and we learn and it just lots of cool things happen. We become more of a mature Christian, so we're not a baby anymore. Maybe we're more like a kid. Maybe we're more like a young adult, then we're an adult. So the longer you continue your relationship with God, He continues to grow you and mature you and show you things. He's always trying to change us. He's always trying to mold us and shape us into the man or woman He created us to be, so that we can do what He created us to do. We talked about that a little bit in the last series. He wants to make you into the person He created you for. He's preparing to use us to do amazing things. Things that He prepared before He even created us. Things He prepared for us to do. So we need to trust Him. We need to understand that whatever we go through, He knows. Whatever we go through, He knows what we're going through. And He's there to help us out. One more verse, 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 7 through 10. You guys, I'm sure, have heard of Paul in the Bible. The Apostle Paul, he wrote a lot of the New Testament. Now, I look up to Paul. He was a really godly guy, and he did a lot for God. But even Paul, even the most spiritual, godly people in the Bible, still struggled with stuff. They still had temptations. They still had things that they weren't proud of, things they did that they shouldn't have done. But here we're going to read about Paul, that Paul had a struggle. Paul had what the Bible says, a thorn in his side. We don't really know what that was. But here's why God allows us to go through struggles and to not have just an easy life. Because a lot of us really want an easy life. And we think, why is God letting me have an easy life? Isn't that what's supposed to happen when you become a Christian? Just have an easy life? No. So, 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 7. Paul says, even though I have received such wonderful revelations from God, so to keep me from becoming proud, I was given a thorn in my flesh, a messenger from Satan to torment me and keep me from becoming proud. 3 times I begged the Lord to take it away. Each time he said, my grace is all you need. My power works best in weakness. So now I am glad to boast about my weakness so that the power of Christ can work through me. That's why I take pleasure in my weaknesses and in the insults, hardships, persecutions, and troubles that I suffer for Christ. For when I am weak, then I am strong. Any of you guys ever feel weak?
No.
Weak? No? Then God can't work through you. If you don't feel weak, God can't work through you. See, we have to realize, we have to humble ourselves and realize that we need God. That's what it comes down to. We have to realize that we need God. And so if you're strong, if you're not going through hard times, you have it all figured out, well, guess what? Then you don't need God. You don't need God. But if you're a normal human being, you understand you do need God. You go through temptations. You go through struggles. Even this godly guy named Paul had a thorn in his flesh. We don't know what it was. But he says here that God allowed it to happen to keep him from becoming proud. Sometimes we get a little too proud of ourselves. And we get a little too cocky and we think we're all that. That's not good. Because then we're not humble before God. And we don't reach out to Him. And we don't feel like we need Him because we can take care of it ourselves. And that is just not the right attitude. And God will humble us, trust me. He'll make us realize that we need Him. That we truly, truly need Him. So Paul had those struggles. And he asked God to help him, but God did not remove it. God was not being bad. God was not being a jerk. God wanted to show Himself through Paul's weaknesses. God wanted Paul to depend on Him, not on his own self. And that is the same with us. God knows what we're going through. He knows how hard this life is. He knows that we struggle with temptation. He knows we struggle with sin. But He also knows that if we can call on Him, if we can reach out to Him, wherever we're at, no matter where we're at, no matter what we're doing, He will show up and He will help us. When we are weak, He will be strong. He will help us through our situations. So I want to just wrap it up with this. Here's the thought for the week. You can't beat temptation on your own. You need God's help. You need God's help. I need God's help. Every single person. If we want to beat temptation, we have to understand you and I cannot do it by ourselves. We need God's help. This is one of my favorite verses in the Bible. I have a ton that I love. But I love this one. It's John 15:5. This is Jesus talking to His disciples. And He's making this analogy of living life. And He's saying, Jesus is saying, look, I am the vine. He says, you are the branches. He says, if you stay joined to me, if you stay connected with me, and I will stay connected and joined to you, then you will produce lots of fruit. Out of your life, good things will come out. Good things will grow. And this is my favorite part. He says, but you cannot do anything without me. You can't do anything without me. That's what Jesus is saying. Jesus says, you can't do anything without me. And that is what we have to understand. Temptation is going to come. Always. Remember, we talked about it last week. Everyone deals with temptation. No, it's not a sin, but it could lead to sin. So temptation is going to come your way. Are you going to try to fight it on your own? Or are you going to be humble enough to reach out to God and say, God, I can't do this. I need you. Show me the way out. And when God shows you the way out, by His power and by His strength, you will take that way out. And then you will trust that through that whole situation, He taught you something. And you're going to trust that He's working in your life to change you little by little. And every situation is something new you're learning. And you're becoming more and more mature as a Christian, more and more as a follower of Jesus. And that's how it all works together. Like I said before, we always want to take the easy way out. And I understand I am the same way. I want to take the easy way out too. I just want to fall to my temptations. Because it's easier that way. But then I'm thinking about it and I feel bad and I'm like, I want God to be proud of me. I want to please God. I want to honor God with my life. I don't want to follow those temptations. I want to be stronger. I want to be able to fight those things off. I want to be able to show this world that God is stronger and greater than anything else. So I hope that you guys are with me. And these are just a few things that you can do in your life to help temptation lose. As always, there's the Q&A box, or the card box over there. If you guys have any questions, we're going to do a Q&A time after this series. So please put them in there. Like I said, the next couple weeks, Pavel is going to be talking more. And he's going to give more like specifics, with friendships and other things about temptation and how we can fight it off and be better. So let me go ahead and pray, and then we'll do a song and get ready to get out of here. God, thank you so much for tonight. Thank you for the fun we've been able to have. And God, thank you for bringing students out. I wasn't sure how many students would show up because of the week off that Bryles had, but I just thank you for bringing everybody here. We pray for those that are not here. We pray that they're well and that they'll be back with us next week. And God, I just pray, hopefully something just made sense tonight. And that we just understand, God, that being tempted is not a bad thing. And I know we want to kind of have an easy life. And we don't want to fall to those temptations. But God, you use those things in our life to change us and to help us to learn more about you and ourselves and get stronger and train and God, just be stronger because of it. So I just pray, God, that we would pursue you and we would ask you for help. We'd be humble and just understand that we can't fight the temptation on our own. That God, we need your help. And so, God, when temptations come, may we stop? May we spend a moment with you and just ask you for that way out? May we look around, God, and you show us that way out, and that we'll take that way out. And through it all, you'll just show us more and more of the person you want us to be. So God, help us, because there's so many temptations in this world, and so many people and things that are just trying to pull us away from you, God. So help us to stay strong. Help us to just fight those things off and to live our lives for you. God, we thank you in advance for what you're going to do and how you're going to continue to show us more of yourself and change us into the people you want us to be. Right now, as we worship you, God, may we not be distracting our friends or anything like that, but just focus on the words of the song and singing it to you, and maybe doing some cards or prayer cards or whatever. So we thank you for this night, and we pray all these things in your name. Amen.